Hello everybody, I'm Mike Brown and welcome to Electric City Sentai Denzicaster, your somewhat regularly scheduled video show about the wonderful world of Tokusatsu. And today we are taking a look, at something that we looked at on our very first episode here on the ECS network. If you remember, the very first video we ever put up here was one that was recorded, this is an audio podcast, recorded on my wedding night. It was an episode hosted by Dave Fleshman, and the rest of the gang watched Pacific Rim. Well, it's our turn now. And by our turn, I mean me and my wife. Sort of apropos, we didn't get to see it the first time around here on the show. And my wife, Cana, will be joining me, in fact, for the very first time, and I have a sneaking suspicion not for the last, on sort of a Mike and Cana movie night edition of Denzicaster. Now, Pacific Rim, which I haven't watched in about 3 years. My wife has never seen it at all. But Guillermo del Toro's 2013 effort here about giant robots built to be humanity's last hope against an invading force of Kaiju was, something of a resurgence. That's kind of funny if you stop to think about the name of the next Godzilla movie. But something of a resurgence of tokusatsu interest here in the United States, inspired by anime with giant mecha like Patlabor, and inspired obviously by Godzilla and the giant monster movies of Japan's yesteryear. Pacific Rim sort of helped bring back interest in Kaiju somewhat mainstream here in the United States. I think it's not an exaggeration to say that had Legendary's 2013 picture absolutely tanked, that the 2014 Legendary effort for Godzilla, their wanton desire to get King Kong with Skull Island, the sequels coming up to the Legendary Godzilla from 2014, and maybe even Lionsgate Mighty Morphin Power Rangers reboot might never happen, or at least not the same way they did, without this one. So, myself and my wife will be sitting down this week to check out Pacific Rim here on Denzicaster. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back. Cana and I are going to go watch a movie, and you are going to check out some fine commercial messages that will hopefully help pay for things around here. But we'll see you right after this. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Electric City Sentai Denzicaster. My wife Cana and I just got done watching Pacific Rim, starring Idris Elba and, Charlie Hunnam. Idris Elba's the only guy I recognize in the whole movie.
And Ron Perlman.
And Ron Perlman. And Rinko Kikuchi. That's our main three in the film. 2013, as we mentioned before the break. If there's some shaky cam, please ignore that. The rig is a little unstable today, kind of like parts of this movie. But
Parts?
I feel the need to explain before we get too much farther that this particular movie was her idea. So she's the one that actually suggested we watch this movie first.
It's not that I regret it. It's just...
It's not that you regret it. Okay.
There were moments that, yes, it had its moments, but timing was off. It was extremely slow in points. They had bad timing for certain parts of it. Explanations that should have been made earlier were made too late for my personal taste.
Well, real briefly, basic gist of the movie. At some point in the near future, a rift opens between our world and another dimension, allowing gigantic monsters called Kaiju, imagine that, to come through a rift in the Pacific Ocean and invade our world. And through the course of the movie, we basically find out, spoilers, by the way, for a 3-year-old flick, we basically find out that the monsters are basically just the setup for a major invasion, extermination of the human race, as these creatures go from world to world, colonize, take what they need, and move on. So in that regard, it's basically a very stock science fiction plot. Aliens want to come, take all of our resources, move on to the next planet, and so on and so forth. Only this one includes giant monsters and giant robots. We will start, let's start with the story. I will freely admit, to me, the story of this movie basically serves very little purpose other than to get you from one really cool special effects scene to the next. And in that regard, I keep reaching for the disc. I don't know why I keep setting it down. In that regard, this movie has no... I'll give you this. It has no real legitimate reason to be 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Slow timing. What did I keep saying while we watched the movie? What the hell? It is moving too slow.
So, I will say this. You haven't seen a lot of movies like this before.
No.
Now, here's what she's going to realize over time. Because
God.
we're introducing her to a few of these. Because, just to let everyone out there know, and this is not a promise, this is a goal, this is something we're shooting for. We have selected 15 movies. Now, not all of them are directly tokusatsu like this one.
Because I can't handle that yet.
But some of them are. And you thought this was slow. I have deliberately picked a couple of bad ones in there just to help her appreciate this one.
Then why did we start with this one?
Because you ease someone into such things. You start with something that's palatable, and it's kind of like you hide the medicine in the food. It's that mentality.
That doesn't work.
I always work
Just
on my
toss
dogs.
me off the dock. Let me figure out how to swim. If I don't, I drown and I'll never watch it again.
Well, what your basic beef? We get the idea that it's too slow, and I agree with you there. I mean, it's a 131-minute movie for no real good reason whatsoever. It probably could have lost a good 20 to 30 minutes and still been a perfectly fine movie.
It could have lost a lot more than that and still been a good movie because some of the plot points were not necessary at all.
Okay, so what were your thoughts on the story itself, and what did you think was not necessary?
I think the whole reason that Idris Elba's nose kept bleeding through the entire movie was Pentecost. That's right. He was Marshall Pentecost.
Yes, Marshall Pentecost. Stacker Pentecost. It was a funny name, but...
Okay, the storyline between him and Mako, it was nice, but not really necessary. The fact that Raleigh and Mako, Mako, there's potential love interest, not really necessary. And of course, they kind of hint at it through the whole thing, but then they don't flat out give you an answer until, the very end, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Wow.
Sorry.
She drops the F-bomb for... No, it's okay. This is an explicit show when it comes to things like that, language and such. Well, here's my thinking. I think I'll disagree. I actually do think that the Pentecost Mako story, or Mako story, is a necessity.
Yeah, she's not a shark. She's a pig.
Yes.
Right?
I think it is necessary because I think you need to have that emotional rationalization for why he doesn't want her to go and why she respects him so much. I think that's actually necessary. I think you could have told it a lot faster. I think we could have gotten it a lot earlier. I would argue that realistically, I think that pre-credits, that whole sequence with the two of them probably should have been part of the pre-credits. That we see that as an early chapter going through, and then we can have the realization when Mako drifts and we get the dream sequence, just make it a lot shorter, and you can then have the realization, oh wait, she was the little girl.
Right.
So I think you could have done that easier. Now, the love interest bit, they tried really hard
to get every person who brought their girlfriend with them to want to be invested into this movie, and they sucked at it.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say they tried really hard to subvert a trope, is how I felt. It looked like they were trying to tease the relationship and then not pay it off. Because if you look at the end, all you get is an embrace. And that's when, if they went all the way with this, if they actually went all the way with the trope, then they should have kissed on the life raft at the end of the movie. That's right. So, either just don't do it. You can tease it and go, no, we're doing this. We have to fight the kaiju, blah, 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 and get that out of the way first and just ditch the trope early. Or he should have kissed her. at the end.
That's what the heroes do at the end of every other movie when there's a love interest.
Yeah.
Either that or they just completely leave them saying, I'm sorry, I'm too bad for you. I can't ruin your life like this. Woe is me. That kind of shit. But, now, there were good parts.
Okay. What were some of the good parts?
Damn it, you put me on the spot.
Uh-huh. I had to listen to her through the whole movie, folks. What were the good parts? I know you didn't think the good parts were the doctors.
Oh my gosh, they were so pointless. What the hell? I mean, it was like you have Mr. ADHD with Mr. Anal Retentive, and
our doctors, Gottlieb, and I forget the other one's name, to be honest.
They were Herman and
Newt.
Herman and Newt. There
so
we go.
Newton was the point, but yeah, Herman and Newt. It is a long-standing tradition in kaiju movies to have comic relief characters.
That wasn't comic relief. That was irritation.
They were the comic relief characters here. The only upside is they actually had a storyline purpose that became important to the plot. So the bumbling arguments between the two eventually becomes crucial to the plot. Eventually, meaning in the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie. But it eventually does. Them and Hannibal Chow. Ron Perlman.
I love what happened to him, but then they ruined it at the end.
Oh, so at a certain point, we wind up with a baby kaiju, which is not as cute as it sounds. And
I don't know. It was kind of cute when it was dead.
Not as cute as it sounds.
It kind of looked like a pig. That was my other problem. All the freaking monsters look like rip-offs.
Well, now here, you say rip-off, I would say homage. Let's look at the visuals real quick. Let's jump over to that. To me, this movie is more than simply visually stunning.
Fair.
But the visuals are incredible in this movie. I thought they did a really good job. We see throughout the film ultimately 5, but really we see in detail 4 different mecha, the Jaegers themselves. They all have very unique looks. They all move differently.
Different weapons.
Different weapons, different cockpits, all from different nations, built by different groups of engineers. So that I liked, and it made a lot of sense. I hate the fact that only 2 of the crews actually get developed in the movie. The only thing we know about the Russians is they look like Russians. Well, they look like movie Russians anyway. And
their accents weren't that good, though.
No, not really. And then the only thing we know about the Chinese is that there were 3 of them and they like basketball.
Yeah.
That's about all we learn about those guys.
I like that they were different colors. It made it easier during the fight sequences to be able to tell the difference between them. Because a lot of times when you have a lot of people in uniforms, or in this case, machines, if they all look similar, or they all are in the same color scheme, even though they don't look similar, when you have them fighting multiple monsters at the same time, it kind of gets a little bit, who the hell is fighting who?
Right.
I can't tell which character is that.
Right.
So I appreciate that they were different colors. You know, like the Russians, they looked a little bit worn out, and the Jaeger itself looked worn out, while the one from
Australia?
No, not
China.
The China. It was red. It was beautiful. It just stood out.
Red China. I mean, it's a play on the words, but yeah. And they give you excuses for why these ones look the way they do.
Because they were from different times, they were different models.
Yeah, like Cherno Alpha is the Russian Jaeger.
And it was Mark 1.
It's a Mark 1. It's one of the very first Jaegers ever produced. Whereas Strike Eureka, which is the sleek, sophisticated model,
very shiny.
Yeah, very shiny. It's a Mark V. It's the first and only, but it's the latest and greatest. Gypsy Danger, the hero of the piece, as far as the robots are concerned,
is scuffed.
Is scuffed, but it's a Mark III. It was in the middle, so it makes sense. And I like the fact that, as part of the story, the fact that it was older actually made it better at certain points in the film.
Because it was more analog while everything else was more digitalized, and that backfired on them too. You know?
Because one of the Jaegers in the movie, or not Jaegers, one of the Kaiju in the movie winds up having an EMP pulse as a weapon, and it just disables all the Jaegers, save for save for Strike Eureka because it's analog. Not Strike Eureka, Gypsy Danger, because it is analog. To the point of the kaiju all looking very different. You call them ripoffs, I call them homages, because one thing Del Toro admitted very early on was that he is a huge fan of this style movie, giant monster movies. He's a huge fan of mecha shows, anime shows. Pat Labor, it was one that he stated was an influence. You've never seen that. Some people, I've never actually seen the series, but some of you out there might have. And to me, I actually thought it was pretty cool that the kaiju in the movie were homages to famous kaiju that most Americans probably have never seen. So, like, if I sit here, I guess you had the advantage or disadvantage, whichever one you may consider it, of me sitting next to you going, yep, that's so-and-so. For instance, there's one in the movie called Leatherback, which is very obviously based on a gorilla and is very obviously an homage to King Kong, who is sort of the ancestor of all Daikaiju, since he's the one that inspired Godzilla. Knifehead, at the very beginning, is very much like Godzilla in behavior and mannerisms. And you mentioned
sound. The
roar.
sound was so close to it. They were slightly off pitch-wise.
Yeah. And then you have, I think it's Orochi, is the aquatic kaiju that eventually sprouts wings, a la pterodactyl, and I go, yep, that's Rodan. So I guess you probably had.
But they also had one of the extras from Jurassic Park come in and join them. That's kind of like, what the heck?
Yeah, but by that logic, Godzilla's an extra from Jurassic Park.
No,
he's a dinosaur.
No.
He's a dinosaur, though.
No, it is different. It is different. I'm serious. When you suddenly have a monster who only has one little head and then suddenly goes, Wah! That is no. That is Jurassic Park right there.
There were numerous homages throughout the movie, even with some of the musical tones in places. You could catch that.
But to me, you think of it as homages. To me, it feels a little bit more like copying. It's kind of like you with Star Trek Into Darkness. Okay?
Our fans don't know how much I hate that film.
He calls it Into Dumbness.
I'm not the only one.
Hold on. He says that because they copied the script from Star Trek Wrath of Khan.
In places, almost word for word.
So why can't the same thing be considered for monsters? To me, it's almost a lack of creativity. He is doing something completely on his own to show people something that he already enjoys. There's a little bit of free reign, especially it's not like you doing Godzilla or any of these other monsters. Why not, have a little bit of fun and try something new, shape them and not make them sound like creatures that you've already seen.
I think you get that at the end. I mean, first things first, one of the things about most giant monster movies, most Japanese giant monster movies, with one exception, which has a hell of a story behind it that we can't go into on this one, but it was a movie called Godzilla vs. Megalon. With only one exception, in Godzilla, you never have a humanoid robot. So the idea of the humanoid robot versus the giant monster, while not entirely original, I mean, it's existed on Japanese television before, but as a feature film, this is not something that Daikaiju movies do. So that in and of itself is, to me, original. The second part is, there's a difference between... I don't think it's a bad thing. There's a difference between ripping off and paying homage. Into Dumbness, word for word copied scenes from Star Trek 2. It's not like this movie put in a CG Godzilla and the only thing they did was maybe give him a frilly collar. I mean, that's not what they did. Well, no, here, let's put a big-ass horn on his head. Maybe they won't notice it's Godzilla. And it's not that they did that. The Knifehead, which was the Godzilla homage, he didn't have atomic breath. So
no, that was 2 monsters later that had the atomic breath.
Well, it was acid breath, but yeah, I get the idea. And yes, they made it, certainly it looked like Godzilla's atomic breath as far as some of the glowy effects. But, King Kong didn't run around actually on all fours like an actual gorilla in the movie, in the original films.
But neither did this.
Oh no,
copy,
you actually see him.
But only a few times. A lot of times he was not on all fours.
No, not all the time, but neither is a gorilla.
Exactly. It just bugs me.
So, she has no clue what she's in for just yet, folks.
Don't worry. There will be some musicals. At least musicals are clear cut. When an important moment happens, you know what they're going to do? They are going to burst into fucking song and tell you why they are feeling that emotion, and then they'll move on.
Yes, folks. One of the things that I had to do to get my wife to agree to do this was I had to seed that we would be watching some of her favorite films too, which are musicals. So. Not everything when we have Mike and Cana movie night here on Denzicaster is going to be tokusatsu. Most of it will be somehow toku adjacent.
And we even chose musicals that would be slightly toku adjacent.
So
they're like the 5th or 6th cousin once removed.
Which means they're legal in certain southern states.
That's right.
But no, there's the whole idea in this film. I think, like I said, I think it's a loving homage. It's, I'm trying to think of a good comparison. Realistically, it would be, okay, Galaxy Quest is not a ripoff of Star Trek. It's an homage.
But that's
now, granted, it's a comedy. So it's a different genre.
It's a different genre. It's not only is it an homage, it's also a bit of a...
It's a parody at the beginning, but by the end it's an homage. Because by the end of the movie, they actually are science fiction heroes.
Right, but again, to me, that's different.
You have the chief engineer who... in Star Trek was drunk and in Galaxy Quest is high. You've got the egocentric captain, the alien science officer, the minority navigator. You've got the chick that does nothing but talk,
but has great boobs.
Yeah, so Sigourney Weaver and Nichelle Nichols. Yeah, so it's Star Trek. It is, but it's an homage. It's not a ripoff.
It was a parody at first that turns into an homage.
Sure.
But
this is an homage.
We are running out of time here.
Like you would know. Anyway, the music.
Want a time frame.
The music.
Okay.
Now, music is her thing. For the record, my beautiful wife here it actually holds a bachelor's degree in music. So she knows music, hence the fact she loves musicals. I will say, to me, I enjoy the music in this movie for the most part. You do occasionally catch, I'm pretty sure at one point I heard dun, 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 basically the opening of Godzilla.
Yeah.
So
and the deep strings pull that ominous tone that you hear in just about anything just before something bad happens. I like the music. I mean, it sounds very heroic. Mm-hmm. A lot of times. Some of the slower points, they could have chosen better music points, to my personal opinion. For me, music always helps make it feel either faster or slower. And at the slowest points, I was kind of like, where's my cell phone?
Yeah.
I need...
So, final thoughts. Your final thoughts on Pacific Rim.
It was not bad. Will I watch it again soon? Probably not.
I have not watched this movie. Admittedly, I have owned this movie since it came out on Blu-ray. I have not watched it since I saw it in theaters in 2013. So I have not actually watched this movie in 3 years. This is the first time I have ever cracked this case open to watch this movie. I'm pretty sure I lent it to somebody before. Here's how I know. I still have the bloody insert, which I always throw away.
Yeah, and that expired a while ago.
Yeah, so it's done. But it's still in the case, which means I haven't cracked that bad boy open. I enjoy the movie. And I actually think it is a reasonably good gateway into tokusatsu, because see, here's one thing, what she may not seem to realize is, we record this on a smartphone, to be perfectly honest with you folks, which means I can see the facial expressions my wife makes as we're talking. But no, it really is a good gateway, because you get the action, you get the some of the tropes and whatnot, but you don't have to process the very Japanese-centric cultural portions of the movie at the same time. So you're getting bits and pieces of what a tokusatsu giant monster movie is. Pacific Rim, to me, is the gateway for a Daikaiju, someone getting into Daikaiju movies in much the same way you could argue that Power Rangers would be a gateway for Super Sentai, because you get the flavor, but you don't have to figure out the cultural stuff at the same time. And there was one other thing that popped in my mind about this, and then it popped right back out as quick as it popped in, but maybe I'll remember it later and talk about it later, who knows. But no, I actually think it's very much a good gateway piece. That's how I think it should be looked at, for people getting into the genre.
In regards to gateway, I'm sorry, I'm not hooked.
Well, if that didn't hook you, what we're going to watch next is Kaiju related won't either.
I'll have my cell phone.
Yeah.
Or nap.
Well, I can't say nothing. Dave Fleshman has slept through some of the stuff we've talked about on this show. So, one thing that my wife came up with for this is the way we're going. We're actually, she and I, when we do these, we're actually going to rate the movies. We don't normally do this on Denzicaster. We thought it would be cute for us since it's our movie night. So I initially thought, we do this Siskel and Ebert style, thumbs up, thumbs down. But my wife very accurately pointed out that something that we have a nasty habit of doing is playing on our cell phones when we get bored watching a TV show or a movie. So cell phones down would be good, because we're actually engaged in the movie. We're watching the flick. Cell phones up, not so much. That means we have tuned out to a point and we're doing something else. So, baby, your rating of this movie.
I'm going to give half cell phones down. Because I actually made it through half of the movie before I actually decided I need to check to see if my phone's fully charged to use it.
Now, is the only reason that happened because your phone was actually dead when the movie started?
Not completely. No, really. I mean, I was engaged for the first half. But it literally, starting about the halfway point, I was kind of like, will you kill the fucking monsters, please? And I still didn't get my phone until we were 3/4 of the way.
For myself, cell phone down. I enjoy this movie. It's not as good as something like, she's not going to know any of these movies by name. It's not something as good as GMK. I don't find it as entertaining as Final Wars. It's certainly not the original Godzilla King of the Monsters, but it is a fun, engaging movie to me. I enjoy the funny parts. I enjoy the diversions. I enjoy Ron Perlman. I enjoy that I'm hoping Pacific Rim 2 brings back Ron Perlman. It needs to be Pacific Rim 2, The Quest for Ron Perlman's Shoe. That
what
needs to be the next movie. What the fuck is the point of having
Pacific Rim 2? They closed the fucking breach. I mean, it's not like it just suddenly, oops, we just killed everybody except for the big 2 major characters, but we didn't really actually do it. Woo!
It's technology. It's an alien race. Just because they close one rift doesn't mean they can't open another one.
So why is it going to be in the Pacific again?
I'll be damned. Well, because that's the name of the franchise, Pacific Rim.
We'll make it Pacific Rim 2, Quest to Save the Atlantic.
No, I'm making my petition known now. It needs to be Pacific Rim 2, the Quest for Ron Perlman's Shoe. So,
no.
I'm eagerly awaiting that, where there will inevitably be a chase scene between him and Dr. Newt with Newt wearing one of his shoes and Ron Perlman wearing the other one, and they're chasing each other down, and that's going to be the plot of the movie.
What is it about in that movie where there were people with only one shoe?
I have no clue. It actually was a... Now that you mention it, that was like a plot point for Mako.
Yeah. And now Ron...
It was symbolic. It wasn't a plot point, but it was symbolism. But then it's Hannibal at the end of the... Yeah, that is kind of funny now that you mention it. Anyway.
You know, I'm just...
So, folks, of course, next time it will probably be one of our regularly scheduled episodes of Electric City Sentai Denzicaster. So I imagine it will be Kamen Rider Drive or Kamen Rider Amazons, one or the other. I'm sure she will not be there for that because we haven't quite worked her up to watching the TV shows just yet. But
I've watched some with you.
Very few. But
the Dancing Fruit was funny.
Yes, the Dancing Fruit was funny. So you never know. We might actually, when it comes time to do the Denzi Blitz episodes over on Facebook for Kamen Rider Gaim, I might drag her on for some of them. Which reminds me, folks, don't forget to check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Denzicaster. You'll see the link after the flip. And don't forget to check out Denzi Blitz. You may be seeing it here on YouTube, but it airs a week early over on Facebook. And right now, I am covering, by the time you see this, I'm either just about to the end of Tokusou Sentai Deca Ranger, or I will have just started Kamen Rider Decade, probably one or the other. But turns out I may not be the only one doing Denzi Blitz episodes. America's favorite black man and our favorite Alaskan penguin, Chris Brown, has talked to me. I think he's got something in the works too that he's going to do on Denzi Blitz. So definitely check that out. You never know. Denzi Blitz may wind up being twice a week. I don't know if we're ready for that just yet, but we will find out. I think the next thing we're going to cover on this show, let's not jump into musicals just yet.
No, I was thinking more towards the end.
No, so let's the next time here on a Denzicaster Mike and Cana movie night. You technically picked this one.
Yeah, I know. I regret that.
But I'm going to let her pick the next one. We actually had set aside 13 movies that we own for us to watch. So you pick the next one. What are we watching next?
V for Vendetta.
Okay. I've never seen V for Vendetta.
Well, I love watching that one.
So that will be the next movie that we cover here on the Mike and Cana Movie Night edition of Denzicaster. Until next time, folks, I'm Mike.
And I'm Cana.
And we will see you next time on Electric City Sentai Denzicaster.